Hey everyone, we're going to go ahead and get started. So my name is Carlos Albin, and I am the Senior Vice President for Technical Programs and Strategic Partnerships here at ITS America. I'd like to welcome you to today's webinar, which is the first in a four-part series we are hosting on Vehicle to Everything, also known as V2X, as many of you know. Today's webinar will focus on essentials to beginning V2X at a public agency. This webinar series is part of a broader effort through which ITS America has been working closely with the U.S. Department of Transportation's Intelligent Transportation Systems Joint Program Office to support state and local agencies who are currently deploying V2X or might be interested in deploying V2X in the future. We are capturing all this information for the benefit of the industry and the deployment community. A couple of quick logistical items for your awareness. Today's webinar is being recorded, and a copy of the recording will be posted to the ITS America website in the very near future. We have also enabled closed captions for this session, and you can choose to turn them on using the Zoom cursor at the bottom of your screen. Finally, we do encourage you to provide any questions you have for our presenters within the Q&A pod. We may not have time to address your questions at the end of today's presentations, but we will capture them for potential future follow-up. So with that, I will now turn things over to our moderator, Tim Woods, who is the founding partner at POCO Labs and Executive Director for the Future Mobility Collaborative. To get us started, Tim, I will turn things over to you.
Thank you, Carlos, and a big thank you to ITSA for putting together this webinar series. We're very excited to be talking about the essentials to beginning V2X at a public agency, and we've got a great list of panelists with us today. We have April Wire from Maricopa County, Jim Meisner from Qualcomm, and Alan Davis from Georgia Department of Transportation. My apologies. You will go ahead and get started by setting the stage with a recent piece of research that was conducted by the Society of Automotive Engineers and M-City at the University of Michigan that was focused on the consumer value propositions around V2X. And we talked with them about safety, efficiency, and transactions. Next slide. This is a very just rudimentary look at a vehicle, right, and how it could interact with the world, with all types of infrastructure, with vulnerable pedestrians, with infrastructure, roads, your home, another vehicle, and this could also include commercial or fleet vehicles as well in that box in the middle. Next slide. Just to talk about how we got to where we did this huge piece of quantitative research with consumers, which was with around 2003 people. We got started in this whole thing by talking with stakeholders, in-depth qualitative research with key stakeholders in 2003 in the evolving V2X ecosystem. Stakeholders were included, but were not limited to state, regional, and municipal departments of transportation, enabling tech and data firms, infrastructure providers and builders, and public infrastructure assets, things like fire departments, airports like Hartsfield, LAX. The core findings from that research provided a framework to understand challenges and opportunities for future V2X deployment. A framework focused on safety and efficiency as a pre-competitive enabling platform that provides a scalable platform for monetization and revenue sharing among stakeholders like OEMs, tier one suppliers, potential retail and municipal partners. The missing piece of the puzzle remained to be consumers. So we followed that piece of research up in 2024 with a deep dive qualitative piece of research with consumers. Next slide. So most respondents were readily accepting of V2X features that addressed familiar problems. And this kind of provided us with a confirmation of what we were hearing from the stakeholders. So safety and efficiency were kind of the pre-competitive enabling platform that we could focus on. Safety and efficiency reside in this pre-competitive V2X space. This could incentivize the OEMs to agree on de facto standards to enable a platform for connectivity that takes the greater good into consideration and enables a baseline features that enhance the overall journey and address safety. What this does is it provides scale, a scalable platform, which is what all the OEMs and tier ones are looking for. This then allows for competitive differentiation for new user experiences, monetization, and revenue sharing. When the pre-competitive enabling platform is built out for safety and efficiency, competition can flourish in a new connected ecosystem. Next slide. So we took all of this information, everything together, and we took and refined the use cases that we had developed with the stakeholders, that we verified with the qualitative consumer research, and we conducted this large quantitative study. We knew we needed to do quant research so people could actually make decisions on moving forward. Next slide. So this took us to where we are today. Next slide. And the key takeaway here, and this basically bore itself out through every discussion for all three pieces of research. Safety features are the clear winner. They are the most desired, and they would be used most often by consumers and add the most value to their vehicle. Now, this was not a pricing study. This was a value study. What do they value and why? Rated in the top 4 by more than half of the respondents and ranked number 1 most frequently by as most useful and most valuable to consumers. Among the features tested, road hazard warnings is most desired, followed by pedestrian warnings and then emergency vehicle notifications. Because of the broad appeal of these features, the demographics of those desiring them closely resemble the sample as a whole. Next slide. Efficiency. Efficiency always was a fast follower to the safety use cases. Efficiency use cases generally outperform transaction use cases, but I don't want you to make any judgment on transactions yet until I show you this one critical slide. Signal timing and construction notices are appreciated more than collaborative driving, which I'll explain. While construction notices are considered top 4 by almost half, very few ranked at number 1. Appeal varies by feature, with traffic signal timing most desired by suburban respondents and collaborative driving attracting urban dwellers and early adopters who drive significantly more highway miles. Next slide. So let's talk about transactions, basically built off of this platform of safety and efficiency. Transaction use cases would be least frequently used among the use cases, but we have to consider the context of this, right? Safety and efficiency predominate, but once that platform is built, transactions are enabled. 1/3 or fewer rated any of them in the top 4. Parking locator and payment appreciated more than auto fuel pay and in-vehicle tolling. Appeals most to younger respondents, this is a plus, who are early adopters of new technology and living in urban areas. EV owners are especially interested in the auto pay charging feature. Next slide. So all of the use cases are considered nice to have rather than must have. 88% want the features to function independent of a mobile device. This is a critical takeaway question. We asked this specifically to consumers. Would they want all of this enabled through their phone? And 88% said they want the features to function independent of their mobile device. In other words, built into the vehicle. A lot of this has to do with kind of the fail-safe mentality, redundancy, and they just want it to work whether they have their phone with them or not. Gender does not play a significant role in feature appeal. In addition to the features presented, respondents expressed interest for autonomous driving features, enhanced navigation, advanced detection systems like collision avoidance, police notifications, wildlife carjacking, etc. Next slide. So here are the use cases that we were tested. These were all built from the stakeholder conversations and then refined from the consumer qualitative. In the safety use cases, we had road hazard warnings. This is the idea that a vehicle in front of you or from the infrastructure, you're getting warnings that there may be ice on the road, snow, work trucks, workers, that sort of thing. Emergency vehicle notifications. You have a emergency vehicle approaching from your front left or right, front and behind. In-vehicle pedestrian warnings. You have a vulnerable road user entering an intersection or entering the street from the side. Construction notice and alerts in real time, traffic signal timing, the light is going to turn red or green within a specific amount of time. And then collaborative driving. Think of this as getting a large group of consumers or customers away from a fire, trying to get them away from a coastline for a hurricane, or even basically collaborative driving to get out of a stadium or an airport or coming in. Transaction use cases, parking locator and payment. This idea that your vehicle would be able to help you find parking at your destination, negotiate for the best rate, pay for that, and even find you free parking. Automatic in-vehicle tolling, no more boxes. This is all built into the vehicle. And auto pay for fuel and charging. No need to pull out a credit card. You pull out to the charging station, you pull up to the gas pump, and the vehicle communicates. You just pick up the pump and fuel. Next slide. So here are all the descriptions. I'm not going to belabor this because of time, but we have these images were then provided to the consumer with these brief descriptions of what the value propositions were. Next slide. We did the exact same thing for efficiency. Next slide. And we did the same thing for transaction. Next slide. Okay, 9 use cases were presented in random order with a photo and a brief description, which I just showed you. For each use case, respondents indicated their interest in the feature, anticipated usage and frequency, and the value it added to the vehicle. After evaluating all 9 use cases, respondents selected their top 4 choices. Respondents then ranked their top 4 selections: 1 most useful, 4 least useful, 1 most valuable, 4 least valuable. Next slide. Here's where, this is the slide I'm going to stop at. There are more slides, and everyone can get the entire deck. It is being given out completely. There is nothing being held back, but I want to focus on this slide. So if you look to the upper right-hand corner, it says must have and nice to have. The question, how interested would you be in having this feature on your next vehicle? This was to 2003 US consumers. 87% said hazard warnings, 85% said pedestrian warnings, 80% said emergency vehicle warnings. This is incredibly significant. This is the first time we've done this at scale with consumers, asking them what they think of V2X and presenting them with the use cases so they can actually rationalize, is this a must-have or a nice-to-have, and their frequency of use. But I want you to look to the far right of this scale. 56%, that is incredibly significant from a research perspective, said they want auto fuel and charge. 60% said they want tolling. Collaborative driving, 64%. Parking transaction, 66%. This is incredibly significant, and it matters to the OEMs, it matters to the tier ones, it matters to the tollways, and it will matter to the infrastructure providers and builders in this country. Males express higher interest than females in signal timing, collaborative driving, auto tolling, and auto fuel pay. Interest in the features generally decreases with age, and boomers rate interest in all features significantly lower among cohorts. This is standard in every type of research that we do like this. Interest in all features is directly tied to the appetite for new technology. Early adopters express higher interest. That's a good sign. ICE owners rate all features significantly lowest, and urban dwellers significantly highest among the cohorts. I'm going to go to the next slide, and then I'm going to stop. So pedestrian warnings could be most often used, followed by traffic signal and timing. If you had the feature on your vehicle, how often would you think you would use it? So just to give you an idea, pedestrian warnings, 79%. But still, when you go to the far right, tolling, and this was even asked of people who don't have necessarily tolling in their markets, 41%. And this is ranked on daily or weekly. Again, this is all great information. It is being made completely public. If you haven't got a hold of this research report, you can request this from ITSA. They have access to the copies that can be mailed out and sent to you via email. So thank you for that. I am now going to introduce our first panelist, April Weiss from Maricopa County, who is going to give her presentation.
Thank you, Tim. I'm kind of blown away, honestly, by the data that you're just presenting. So I will definitely be requesting that report from ISTA as well. So I'm April Wire, the TSMO Division Manager here at Maricopa County Department of Transportation. We've been working in the connected vehicle space, V2X space, since 2008, but we continue to learn every day as we grow in this space. Next slide. To give you a little bit of background on Maricopa County, we are the 4th largest county by population of 4.2 million people. We hosted the 2023 Super Bowl and lots of mega events in our region. We encompass 27 cities and towns, 9,200 square miles, and larger than some states. I like to go over this slide just to give people a little bit of perspective on the size of Maricopa County. Regarding our infrastructure, transportation infrastructure in our region, we have over 4,100 traffic signals. 96% of those traffic signals are connected to some sort of traffic management center or traffic operations center, so that we have electricity to them, network communications. We can operate those intersections in real time, change the timing as needed, deploy different messages on our 230 dynamic message signs, see what's going on our roadway at 2,600 traffic cameras, and have a sense of travel time at 750 locations. So all of that to say that we have 15 cities and towns working together through our Aztec regional partnership to really move forward the concepts and ideas related to transportation management and operations. And in that space also lies new and emerging technology and V2X technology as well. So even though we have so much infrastructure, each city and town operates their own transportation infrastructure, which makes it very challenging for us as a region, because drivers don't quite understand that as they cross agency boundaries, another agency is responsible for it with different practices, equipment, philosophies, all of that. Next slide. So collaboratively, we've been collecting a lot of the data that Tim just shared in his report related to situational awareness and driver information. And so we've been housing that warehouse in our data warehouse for over 20 years. And a lot of the information is related to signal timing, construction activity, incidents, fire and PD, call outs, travel times on our arterial roadways and freeway system. And our goal has always been to get that information into our operators in our traffic management center so that they can make actionable decisions that really impact the driver's experience. Next slide. So as we transition, we understand that our audience is much broader than just the operators. We are transitioning that information to be in the driver's hands so that they can make actionable decisions as they traverse the roadway itself. So we're really targeting in our era of getting that data into V2X applications. Next slide. So we've been working in the V2X space since 2008. Really partnering with the University of Arizona on research and development. So our initial use case really was to prevent emergency vehicles from colliding at signalized intersections. You'd be very surprised if you pulled up statistics on how often that happens. So we really did focus on that use case, starting our test bed and kind of our experiments in a parking lot with just a couple of V2X devices and transitioning into a real world environment at our Anthem test bed. Next slide. So we started in our Anthem test bed in 2014. So Anthem is a bedroom community on the north end of Phoenix. It encompasses 25,000 residents with about 10,000 vehicles that go in and out of that neighborhood. We started deploying multimodal intelligent traffic signal system MITS as our primary application for V2X technology. The area includes 11 traffic signals that are equipped currently with the DSRC technology, but transitioning to V2X as we move forward. The area itself is about 5.3 miles, and we've been growing our applications, updating our equipment, and really getting our feet wet in a real live demonstration in Anthem. Next slide. So as I find it very interesting, as Tim was going over his slide, that a lot of the applications that drivers are prioritizing or are wanting are a lot of the ones that we have been testing out in Anthem as well. So just trying to get more information into the driver's hands so they have more situational awareness. So imagine you're sitting in your vehicle and you are, sitting at a red light, and you have a countdown regarding when your next green is going to be, or if a pedestrian is on the corner, right? And giving you that situational awareness and how that would affect your actions. Or if an emergency vehicle was popping up behind you, you need to get out of the way, you need to turn, what kind of information would really affect your driver experience. So all along, a lot of the things that Tim is talking about are applications that we've been testing in our Anthem testbed. Next slide. So we've been working out of our Anthem testbed way on the top of the slide, but as the years have gone on, we've definitely tried to expand our use cases and our deployment sites into multiple different areas, partnering with a lot of different agencies. At the end of the day, this map shows almost the entirety of Maricopa County, but not all of it is owned and maintained by the county itself. We partner regularly with the cities and towns within these red boxes to really expand our regional knowledge and use case of connected vehicle technology and V2X technology. Next slide. So this last year has really been pivotal for us. We were one of the 3 sites that were awarded a USDOT grant for really deploying V2X technology at scale and focusing in on interoperability at different levels. The goal of this deployment is really focused on traffic efficiency, real-world testing, and improving traffic safety while leveraging V2X communication methods. Next slide. So this is an accelerated project where the deployment period is about 18 months. We are about 6 months in right now. And after this project, we will be covering 25% of our signalized intersections in the Phoenix metropolitan area. So that's a huge penetration rate. We've definitely grown from our 11 sites up in Anthem to 25% of our overall infrastructure in the county, which is a huge accomplishment for us. Next slide. Again, this project is really about demonstrating interoperability amongst the 3 sites that are awarded across the nation. A goal of the program through USDOT is to really take what we're doing in Maricopa County and see if we can get it to work at the 2 other sites and vice versa. Another thing that has been a challenge with interoperability just between manufacturers in Maricopa County, we've always just used one brand. Through this project, we're going to be using 2 or 3 different brands just to see if we can get them to work together in a real life environment across agency boundaries. We have 4 DOT agencies involved in this project, so it'll be an interesting experiment for us as we move forward, but our goal is to deploy at scale. Next slide. So we are really focusing in 4 V2X applications in our region, one being emergency vehicle priority, transit signal priority, and then vulnerable road users as well. So we're taking our MITS application that we've developed in Anthem and changing the code a little bit to work with these different priorities that we're going to be deploying in our large scale system. So I do want to highlight a few things that have helped us move connected vehicle and V2X technology forward in the region. We have learned to educate our organizations at the top levels and at the bottom levels early and often. We continue to see a lot of turnover in our organization at all different levels, and it's a reoccurring conversation pretty regularly regarding what are the advantages of V2X technology, how does this play into our organization, and what are our goals overall. Next slide. So it's important to remind our leaders that fatalities continue to rise. And the question always being asked is, what can we do to help, right? And so next slide. We're at this pivotal point where we really need to be moving from traditional infrastructure to utilizing technology to our advantage. We can't continue to build our way out of it. At the end of the day, infrastructure projects are costly and timely. Our long time frames exist for them. So we are looking for other solutions that can really make an impact today. Next slide. So promoting emerging technologies has always been a goal for Maricopa County. We always have been early adopters and we learned a lot from it. So before the mandates come out that V2X technologies needs to live on our infrastructure, we already have a grasp of what does it take. And I won't lie, it's very challenging. We continue to learn and grow every day. technology continues to grow and learn every day, but we are not scared to take on these technologies and challenges and try something new. Next slide. So what has made our deployment quite successful is our partnering with University of Arizona at a research level and other organizations as well, trying to really understand what does the audience want, what is valuable to us, and how do we get this to work. So our goal is never to work in a silo. We as an industry need to work together and talk to our neighboring agencies to understand what they know and also educate them on what they don't know. Next slide. So we continue to seek funding for activities like this. There are a lot of federal grants that have helped support our efforts and moved it forward, but we also prioritize these types of technology projects at our through our capital funding as well.
That was,
I'll turn it back over to Tim.
that was amazing, April. I don't think I was as familiar with the scale of your real world test bed. I mean, if I was an OEM and a tier one, I would be driving to Maricopa County right now. That's phenomenal, and I hope that you see more collaboration in your future with the private sector. I think this is fantastic. Thank you so much. Our next speaker on the panel is Jim Meisner from Qualcomm. Jim, take it away.
Thank you very much, Tim, and thank you, April, for setting the context of what it takes for a public sector entity to jump into the fray. I'm going to give you a little bit more nuts and bolts, but it's still, excuse me to use yet another metaphor, it's a little bit of a Reader's Digest version. ITS America is working on something a bit more detailed, and US DOT last year worked on something that's more detailed, but this will give you a taste of what it takes to get V2X instantiated from the decision process on down. So if you can move on to the next slide, please. So I'm going to first describe the flavors of V2X, and then I think I can resonate because April already said those words. Use V2X to address local or regional problems with the right flavor, and I'll elaborate on that a little. And what do you need for interoperability? We heard talk about different brands, but there's a very holistic way, and it starts with standards, certification, what works in first days, and what you can think about as aspirational and can be deferred till later. And then obviously, until we get large OEM penetration, we need aftermarket devices. What can we do to assure interoperability, and very importantly, what can be cost favorable? That is, maybe a way to describe this in less fancy terms is what is cheap and works. And then finally, a step-by-step summary, which is basically the takeaway of all the things I've said before. I may have forgotten something, but it'll be in the summary for sure. So we can go to the next slide. So, this is written from an ATMS or TMC perspective. So it has a bunch of links and it has a cloud. And the way to think about this is there are two flavors of V2X, right? We talk normally, and I index heavily on the direct communication at 5.9 gigahertz, basically the gift to Americans. But we should also talk about networked V2X also. And in this fanciful diagram, they can all interconnect. So you can actually solve a link or network problem that addresses an entire region with the right combination, assuming that you're hitting the right problem statement. But what this is showing is that the problem statement could be rather huge. For example, if you look at the bottom with the direct communication, you have hyperlocal safety. This is safety of life potentially. This is information that's given, for example, the traffic signal or eventually car to car. But if you start to think about the connectivity to the network, then you have this type of heterogeneous linkage, communication being the fabric, that gets you back to the traffic management center. So you would have hyperlocal, link, and network capability all in your hands with different flavors of V2X. So sometimes you hear UU, and this is a Qualcomm slide, so we use that term a lot. That's just the interface to the network. So it's cloud V2X. And PC5 is a direct communication with LTE V2X or the CV2X that you can go and get from a variety of vendors. So again, bunch of things that is holistically V2X, but think about your problem that you want to solve or problems. Next slide. And here are some problems. And, certainly at 5.9, that's been called at various times, and I resonate with this, and hopefully you will too, the safety spectrum. So this is direct communication, not through the network. The traffic cop to assume that sure that timing works is the GNSS. And what you see on the left is what people think about oftentimes, but think about this, is that for V2V to happen, it's the square of the market penetration, because say that someday we get 10, someday soon we hope we get 10% of all vehicles that have this. If the probability of a vehicle encountering another vehicle is 0.1 squared, 1%. It's going to happen. We want it to happen. The safety cases are pretty tremendous, particularly at intersections. Do not pass warning. These are very fatal types of crashes. But at the beginning, if you have it, like in Maricopa County, where I had to drive with a V2X equipped vehicle, I get utility on day one if there's something in the infrastructure. Moreover, if I'm an infrastructure owner operator, and I'm thinking of fleets that are in basically brethren agencies, for example, you can think of transit fleets, you can certainly think of emergency vehicles, you start to get preemptions. That's in the lower right. So if you start with the lower right with the equipment you have, you move up, you start to get red light warning violation, for example, a premier use case being worked on very, very assiduously in standards, you start to get benefit to quote unquote civilian vehicles. Eventually you'll get to the left. So hopefully this kind of gets you in the mindset of what problems you can solve today and how you segue into the problems you want to solve in the future. Next slide, please. Next slide. There we go. Now, it also protects vulnerable road users, but you're not going to, and you got someone Qualcomm telling you this, going to see this in your handset anytime soon. It's a different ecosystem. The quote-unquote OEM is a handset OEMs, and network operators get involved, and it costs money. Plus, there's channel congestion. But we aspire to get there. But you can start to get there if you think about different ways of addressing VRUs. For example, the easiest way to think about it is work zones. These are specialized work. You can have smart cones. You can use the UU interface. That is, you can use the network further out. As you get closer and closer, you can start doing direct communication. So you can start to address classes of pedestrians. If you look at vulnerable road users at blind intersections, I have something to belabor this a little bit later, but you can start to use CV2X at intersections with a camera. And in fact, the intersection safety challenge was basically based on that concept. So that would start to say that the pedestrians don't need to be equipped or the bicyclist, but certainly the camera can bring that information and disseminate it out via different communication links. And there are people making a go at it by putting it on a bike, a CV2X 5.9 gigahertz radio. And that's very notorious because it starts to give a large market penetration. There are a lot of bikes sold in the world. School zone protection, you can do something very specialized, and several, Audi of America, Qualcomm, and others, Applied Information have demonstrated this before. And there are ways of getting, so you can start to address the very important vulnerable road user safety problem with some incarnations of V2X. You have to think carefully about the maturation of it, though. And again, the ultimate goal, putting on a handset, not going to happen anytime soon, I'm sad to tell you. Next slide. So back to, what about interoperability? You can buy multiple brands, but, there've already been, there's a lot of work in the past and work ongoing to assuring, now, maybe not guaranteeing, but doing the best we can to assure interoperability. Certainly, you have to test. Starts with the lower layer standards, as 3GPP, third generation partnership project. So that's what does all the LTE standards. 5GA, which is an industry organization, is really doing pre-standardization work. But the real, particularly in the US, where the rubber meets the road with regard to standards, excuse the bad metaphor there, SAE, IEEE, ITE, and NEMA. And all of you should have heard some combination of those acronyms, because there are standards. I'm going to talk about this a little bit later, but if you have standardized interfaces obviously you have standardized interchanges and a higher probability of things working. Next slide. Now, the highest probability of things working is if they're certified. That is basically conformity assessment, which is a fancy way of saying that they conform to the standards, and you get a certificate. And Omnier does that. A nonprofit organization, lots of affiliations with many of us. And that starts to show, because there are plug tests, which are fine, but ultimately if you get certificates. So the hint, and I'll be more explicit later, is why not specify in your procurement that it has to be Omnier certified? Then all of a sudden, you start to have interoperability that's well tested to the standards. Next slide. Now, in 5G AA, and Carlos allowed me to say this because I belong to lots of organizations. My job is actually, my passion is to make it happen, regardless of what org. So we all work together. We came up with this day one deployment guide, and there are other deployment guides. This is one thing that we started. And by the way, I'll talk about this later. It's a little bit overcome by events, but don't worry. I'll tell you what the events are that's overcome it. But it's a great way to start thinking about this. So you go to the next slide. So our initial motivation, so 5G has a lot of automotive OEMs and people who really, really like and want CV2X to happen. They tell me that they drive in, County X. I'm not going to name the county. They get a bad experience because they get messages that they never expected and don't want. That's important to know. They drive to another county, they get a different bad experience. So can we do a guide? So it turns out that people don't like to be lectured to by anyone. I don't. So the IOOs with whom we talked about says, well, we have a day one. And believe it or not, the tolling people with whom we talked to say, well, we have a day one. It's a little bit different. So in the end, it had several different states of day one. So if you go to the next slide. So the IO, the OEM, and then the special facility IO collaborator. That's like tolling. So 3 different day ones. And we can speculate as to which one will happen first, and I'll tell you, because many of you are IOs. It's going to be the IO with the aforementioned your fleet. And then we came up with really clumsy acronyms, but you get it. The OEMs, mass production, that's what we want. And there are people, and particularly it was shown in Omnier a couple of weeks ago, who really believe in tolling, and there are tolling standards. So those are 3 perspectives that are melded in. We have to keep that in mind always. Ultimately, we want to address all of them and have relevant messages to all of them, but we don't want too much junk in the air. We don't want to congest the channel with messages that won't be used by cars. That's important to know. Next slide. So these are the messages. Now, this is a leave behind, so don't worry. Many of you may know the messages. Some of you won't. This is kind of a level setting webinar, but you see them, and you see them grouped. So vehicle safety, that's going to be pretty important someday. By the way, you can use them to kind of replace loop detectors if you have just enough market penetration. You don't have occupancy, but you certainly you can get speed and counts. Intersection safety, traveler information, road safety, which is a big catch-all. US DOT is working on profiling that to be a little lower catch-all, but still. Priority and preemption, tolling, security, and other services. Seems like a lot of messages, but by the way, people broadcast a whole lot more. So basically, this is the industry coming forward, at least the automotive industry and their suppliers mainly, and saying, stop, this is it. So how do we select these messages? They are all standardized. So if something is an SAE standard and has a path to Omnier, check. If it is a recommended practice, like a PSM, not a check. So it didn't make the list. So that's basically the litmus. Next slide. So, okay, we start switching gears rather explicitly. Okay, now we know what devices might happen on the roadside, what they might want to say, you might want to limit things. But what about OBUs, or onboard unit, or what's called aftermarket safety devices, or some people call them aftermarket V2X devices? There's an SAE document. You see the number, work in progress. It actually is undergoing final ballot soon. We hope final ballot. And it sounds like marketing, but it really isn't. We have ultralight, light, and full. Ultralight being cheapest, full being something that's pretty close to factory fit, and light so it can interact. That's a full safety vehicle. Light being something in between, and the difference is primarily, but not entirely, say the ultralight can generate a BSM from the GNSS or GPS, and it doesn't have to have external antennas. So you put it on your LED dashboard. So it may not have lane level accuracy, but it might be perfect if you're doing only through movement for priority and preemption. Check, cheap, and it'll be standardized. It's going to come through certification. The idea is to get as many of these on your vehicles to solve your problem if that's what it is. This is priority and preemption, perhaps. Light, you have external antennas. Full access to the entire internal vehicle EE system or the CAN bus and other things. So that's pretty full. It's like a retrofit. So that'll stand. So you can specify, I want ultralights. And you can say, I want a certified ultralight, and therefore you'll get a certain set of vendors who are qualified, at least from certificates, to give that to you. So hopefully that kind of makes your life easier when you're trying to figure out how to get this at some penetration in order to have utility to address your problem. Next slide. Okay, let's lean forward a little bit. So you can do sensor sharing. This is, I mentioned the US DOT intersection safety challenge. So that's kind of what's shown on the left. You see VRUs, you see an RSU, and many, particularly in early days, there won't be very much penetration, but there's some. So you can get that into the RSU and out. And then if there's a low market, so that's on the left, particularly with RSU, VRUs, but say you have vehicles that could be you're in conflict too, that could happen too. So that's leaning forward. Maybe this is a day 2, and some of us are working really hard to make this a day 1. Next slide. Nothing like a movie. So if you hit the movie, so this is Qualcomm's campus. Feel free to visit me. You can see on the left, you can see a vehicle moving. You can see on the right through the dashboard, and see on the top, you can kind of see drone footage. So there's a vehicle hidden, and you see it come from the left to the right, but you get an alert. So how does that happen? How do you see through concrete? Well, you've got an RSU out there with a camera. It does a sensor sharing. So we're working pretty hard in a standard that's being developed, J3224/1, which profiles exactly this type of use case. So we can have standardized interfaces, and you can have day 2 applications, hopefully rushed to day 1, that would be acceptable to all. Next slide. And this is my last slide. So what did I say? Hopefully I said it well enough. There's something I'm going to say a little extra. Define the problem statements. Work with experts. I didn't quite say that, but this is somewhat technical. Actually, it's very technical. Hire them, contract them. There are a lot out there. Along with your experts, open your toolbox and select the right tool. Remember, I put parenthetically finite. It's not infinite. This isn't the hammer where the whole world is a bunch of nails. You have a few screwdrivers. You have something that works pretty well for safety and some mobility and some environmental stewardship problems if you want to address those. For V2X, choose direct, network, or a combination. Depends on your problem. For direct, number 4, assure that the application's messages are interoperable. This is the new spice. You need standardized messages that work for OEMs. Omni is essential, but connect the West. So this is one of the V2X accelerator projects. And the fledgling SCMS manager are working with Omni and vehicle OEMs to take this across the finish line. What am I saying? I'm saying that you can literally have certificates that say that things are conforming, and trusted, and then you get a certificate. So there's a security aspect to it. And that brings to the second sub-bullet. Messages always come with certificates and security. So start with security. Don't bypass that. Don't say I'm playing around, because you are, unless you start with security. And there's a protocol, there's a standard, there are suppliers. Interoperability, make sure interoperability and performance are written to your contracts and program plan. Test, test, test for yourselves. Then along with your experts, number 5, select the right tool. I think I said that. I'm sorry, maybe that was an error, but I'm going to say that for emphasis. Always make sure you select the right tool. And then plan your OBU solutions. Remember the aftermarket devices that I talked about. So start to equip your public and or commercial fleets where you have access. So that in a nutshell is what we at Qualcomm would suggest, and certainly you can approach us at any time. We really want to, and we're driven to see V2X on our nation's roads for safety and other types of essential services.
Thank you, Jim. That was absolutely fascinating. I'm glad you started to kind of address kind of the cost sensitivity around this, particularly when you're talking about vulnerable road users. What's really interesting to us is when we did the consumer qualitative research and we started asking consumers, how do they think this would be paid for? What was really interesting is that they almost unequivocally said, I want this built into the vehicle like it's a seatbelt or an airbag. To me, V2X is a digital seatbelt, and that is kind of a really interesting take on it by consumers, and it really does talk about the value proposition here.
And what I'm talking about is filling the gap until you get OEMs to start to have that digital seatbelt. But thank you very much for the comment, Tim.
No, that's wonderful. And so right now, Mr. Alan Davis, best for last, Georgia Department of Transportation. Alan, take it away.
Hey, thank you. Happy to be here to wrap us up. I'm Alan with Georgia DOT, serve as our state traffic engineer, and happy to talk about our V2X program and where we've been with it and where some lessons learned with it. Next slide, please. So just real quick about GDOT, we are a pretty centralized agency. We're headquartered here in Atlanta, where I am now. We have 7 different districts across the state, but we divide things up with the most smallest but most active being District 7 there with a lot of things in Metro Atlanta. And then we have a bunch of different divisions and offices. I'm over the Office of Traffic Operations, which is where we house a lot of our connected vehicle work within the department. Next slide, please. So just a little bit of perspective about where we are with V2X. For us, it's been an added layer to a lot of our existing traffic management goals and objectives. Safety, mobility, traffic management, traveler information. These are all things we're trying to do today to manage our roadways. It's an added layer. It's an added tool for us in a lot of ways to add this digital piece to this to accomplish things, especially with the landscape of where V2X is today and what's available to us. From an OEM perspective and the fleet perspective, it's really a value add in a lot of ways to these existing goals. And we see that's something that's going to continue into the future as more and more vehicles adopt the technology. Next slide, please. Just as a real touch point here of what's actually needed here, from an infrastructure standpoint, obviously you need the existing infrastructure out there, but for us, it's been a fairly simple retrofit to our existing infrastructure to make this work. And this is an example of a traffic signal where the predominance of our deployments have been located. As April mentioned, there's existing power and comm at those locations, so it makes it a bit easier to outfit for this technology. And likewise, at a location not at a traffic signal, just imagine that pole not having traffic signals on it. Very similar application to add on to our existing infrastructure. And that's kind of the point I want to make here for deployment of what's needed is many of the things that we do for traffic management, traffic operations, running and operating a roadway network as an agency like ours, is there foundational roadblocks on the way that when implemented, adding that V2X layer becomes a lot simpler. So just want to drive that point home that this is built upon a framework of existing strategies and tactics to deliver a lot of our common traffic management goals. Next slide. So just real quick, I'll talk a little about GDOT's V2X experience and program, where we've been, some things we've done, and a little bit of where we're going. Next slide. So very quickly, I'll touch on our timeline here. We don't go back quite as far as Maricopa did in the 2008, but we really got our feet wet in V2X with the AASHTO SPaT challenge, which our commissioner often reminds me of what a terrible branding that was, but hey, it got the job done. If you are familiar with that, that was a challenge from AASHTO, American Association of State Highway Transportation Officials, to deploy connected vehicle infrastructure at least 20 intersections in all 50 states by the year 2020. And so that was our entry into this space to understand what we needed to do to accommodate and facilitate connected vehicle technology, what were our gaps, where our strengths, and what it would take to operate this. And it was a great learning experience for us. From that, though, when we deployed that and had it operational in 2018, we were quite successful in standing that up at 54 intersections in the metro Atlanta area. We quickly saw we wanted to take it from a pilot with the SPaT challenge to a program, something that was scalable and that could grow out and meet the coming demand of all these vehicles that would be equipped. And so from 2018 to present day, you see a number of different expansion opportunities. We had grants from ATC-MTD, and we had 2 of those grants that were in there. Well, an interesting thing happened during this timeline where we actually had local governments through the Atlanta Regional Commission, which is the Atlanta Area Metropolitan Planning Organization, come in and put forward their own funding and say, we want to be a part of this ecosystem as well. Let's partner together and deploy out. So we saw this collaborative, programmatic, and scalable deployment across the state and across the metro Atlanta region. Next slide, please. But what this looked like really for us is we were ramping up, and in 2019, when we had our first ATCMT grant, we were at just over 650 intersections. Then we hit the FCC action that really gave us opportunity to pause and think about what we needed to do. Was this a place where the industry was going to go? How did we need to pivot? How do we need to adjust? Next slide, please. Ultimately, we persevered and continued to deploy. So today in Georgia, we have over 2,200 RSUs deployed throughout the state, most of those in Metro Atlanta, also down in Savannah, and a few spots in the western part of the state as well. Because of the delay, just the delay of deployment in OEMs and vehicles, we took a perspective of supporting public sector fleet applications, so things we had control over, things we could add onboard units with and get benefit from today. And we did a lot of R&D, rip off and duplicate from a lot of our peer agencies like Maricopa or Utah DOT, Drive Ohio, Florida DOT, Michigan DOT, lots of great innovators in the space who had success. We were able to take a lot of those lessons learned and apply it to Georgia so that we could get those benefits with these deployments today. And that largely focuses on things like transit signal priority. It's a great way to accomplish a lot of the interoperable transit needs we have within the region and multiple transit operators, emergency vehicle preemption, freight signal priority, doing things to enable freight mobility. A lot of these day one applications that were ready to go that we could take advantage of today. Next slide. Those are largely all RSUs on that previous slide that are at signalized intersections, but we've also taken on the steps to deploy this out on our interstates as well. So through a series of 5 design build projects across the state, we're deploying connected vehicle technology along interstates with a substantial fiber optic backhaul. 2 of those are under construction. The 3rd one is under procurement today, and the 4th and 5th are planned out for the future. So we're investing heavily not only on our arterial network at signalized intersections and strategic safety locations there, but also across interstates in Georgia. You may have heard a lot of this as part of the Ashton Moonshot series. This is our Light Up the Interstates initiative to bring this digital connectivity and backhaul readiness to the interstates in Georgia. Next slide, please. Quickly, I'll touch on how we are leveraging our framework. We acknowledge that a lot of the applications we support have the need for that direct PC5 connections to vehicles, but also there's a lot of less time-sensitive connections that are available to get data out through third parties and whatnot. So we architect ourselves to be able to support both those channels to the best extent we can. Next slide, please. And it is focusing on where we fit today on those applications: emergency vehicle preemption, transit signal priority, freight priority, and traveler information, and then a lot of the signal phasing and timing applications that are available. These are things we have active and running today and continue to scale out. Next slide. So just a quick touch on a few of the lessons we learned through our deployments. It's very important to invest in the basics first. If you don't have signal controllers that are relatively modern, it's probably best to invest in those before you layer on connected vehicle technology on those. The benefit you get from that is enhanced traffic management capabilities, and it gets you ready for V2X when your agency is at a place you're ready for it. Always be scalable in what you're deploying. These aren't meant to be or should not necessarily just be one-off deployments. I think you'll see from Maricopa as well, and any other agency you talk to who's been serious about deploying V2X, that scalability of multiple intersections, a programmatic approach is often that's in there. Always have consistency and accuracy, reliability, and security in mind, and these things. The data matters, the cyber security aspects of this matter tremendously, and you need to start with all those aspects that have around this first and foremost in your deployments. There's been a ton of work by a lot of really smart people to get the standard message sets, the security framework built into this ecosystem. And so, well, we're able to leverage a lot of that work and make sure that's something we can touch on as well. And then think about your people. This is a new space for us. It's emerging tech as an industry for us. Being able to think about how your staff can accommodate and manage and deploy this as an agency is something to always consider. We rely heavily on not only our staff, but also consultants and contractors and systems integrators and folks who have been working in this space for quite some time to help us deliver a successful system. So that's definitely a capability you need to consider when you're deploying. Next slide. I'll touch too on why to deploy. Really, in our deployment, we were preparing for fleets of GM vehicles, Toyotas, you name it, to be rolling off the assembly lines with this technology deployed. That path has taken a different course for the time being, but we're able to get those benefits now of what we can do with this system. There's a number of different use cases that make a lot of sense for Georgia to be able to support this ecosystem. And so we're able to leverage that today in preparation for the safety and mobility benefits that will come in the future. Our commissioner likes to, when asked why we are investing in this space and investing not only in technology, but also a lot of the safety initiatives we have, well, the answer is we'd rather be accused of trying to solve the safety problem that we have today. And there's also that argument about should you be the chicken or egg in this situation, where I think agencies have decided is we're just going to be both. We're going to be the chicken that lays the egg. So we're going to be ready for the technology. There's too much potential and benefit in what it can deliver for safety and mobility for us to sit idle. Next slide. Quickly, I'll touch on just some additional resources that are out there for deployment. The Connected Vehicle Pooled Fund has done a tremendous amount of work over the past 15 years to support this. Deployment models, guidance, pilot events, research papers, you name it. They've a huge body of work that's been there. The V2X Pool Fund study, which is the next generation of the CV Pool Fund study, is coming about, and we'll continue that work moving forward. US DOT has a number of different resources out there, the V2X cohort and many other groups and bodies. Peer agencies like Georgia and Maricopa County and many others who have been in this space are certainly willing to share lessons learned and resources available there. How we fund these different things, there's a number of different channels, both federally, through grants, discretionary grants, or even through formula funding to support a lot of these applications. And I think there's a number of white papers out there that have highlighted some of these things. Also, I'll plug the ITS World Congress that will be here in Atlanta this August. Come visit. It's going to be nice and warm, but it's going to be a great event. And we're going to have a what we're calling the Day One Deployment District operational there, which will be leveraging the deployments that GDOT has undertaken right in around the World Congress Center to experience these day one applications and real life deployments from a number of different vendors. Next slide. And I'll wrap it up, I think, with maybe 30 seconds to spare here. Thank you all.
And Carlos, and thank you, Alan. That was the scale is just breathtaking of what you guys are doing. It's phenomenal. Carlos, I'm going to ask you real quick. Do we have time for question? I know it's 10:59 at the moment.
I think, Tim, we do have time as long as our presenters are okay, maybe to at least take one or two questions before we wrap up.
Sure. Alan, you had brought up the why deploy. I want to ask the same question and from April, in your perspective at Maricopa County, why deploy V2X?
Right. For us, we are really focused on improving safety and just going back to we can't continue to build our way out of it. Like our budgets are getting tight from year to year. We understand that, and even just the capability of our right-of-way constraints. A lot of our developments are building right up to our right-of-way, where our right-of-way is very narrow, so we don't have the capability of expanding more lane widths, adding more lanes, and improving in that way. So we're definitely looking for strategies that we can deploy right now. So we know V2X is coming. Quite honestly, at some point it will be a mandated initiative, and for us, we really wanted to be ready. We wanted to be a resource for our region, because it is quite challenging. I won't lie about that. It is quite challenging working with technology when my background is civil engineering. It is quite challenging, I won't lie, but we definitely want to be ready, have our feet wet, and be prepared.
Perfect. Jim, your perspective in the private sector from Qualcomm, why is it important for an agency to even think about deploying V2X?
Well, I mean, we resonate with the public sector, right? In one way, we are a supplier, but in the other way, we are all users of the road. So from my leadership on down through me and folks who work for me, we truly believe in this and that it should be deployed. So we are doing our level best to make that friction of deployment less and less.
Okay. I've got one, this is a personal question. We had a lot of Q&A in the comments, but I have a very kind of personal question on this. And I want to ask this of all three of you. Is there enough collaboration happening? In other words, when I hear of all the wonderful things happening in Maricopa County, when I hear what's happening at Georgia Department of Transportation, is there a level of coordination? Is there a level of collaboration around lessons learned? Are you sharing? Are you kind of targeting the same things? And how is that information being shared and collaborated with others? Alan, I'll start with you.
Well, the answer is yes. April and I are good friends, and we chat about this stuff often. And it's a small group of states and agencies that are in this space, and we often collaborate, often through federal cohorts that are sponsored, through the pooled fund studies. Have been an incredible venue for that idea sharing and collaboration, and a number of different peer exchanges, you name it. I think there was one just Operations Center of Excellence, one in Texas this week, where this idea sharing is going on right now. So there's definitely a lot of collaboration and interoperability pursuits. I mean, years ago, we shipped some of our equipment over to Utah and tested out some of our signal phasing and timing applications out there just to see if it would work. And it was an incredible experience to learn that from that. So yeah.
That's great to hear. April, how about you? Is there enough collaboration happening, and what is the best method to make that happen?
Right. So quite personally, I value the connected vehicle pool fund study quite aggressively. Alan and I are great kind of co-workers because of that. We collaborate often, even though Maricopa County has been in this space for a very long time. It continues to grow and change. New people are always looking at us for information on how we got started, what is the best pursuits, and so I really do feel like the Connected Vehicle Pool Fund study provides me and Maricopa County with that avenue to really engage with other experts in this field. And we were very lucky to have partners in that space that are willing to share information, because we cannot continue to work in a silo. We learn from one another. We're all going through the same challenges, and we're all learning and growing together. So I feel like the space is very well supported as well.
Wonderful. Jim, Qualcomm, and I mean this in the best possible way, as an enabler of V2X. Are you speed dating? Are you putting people together? Are you, I know that sounds odd, but
we're participating in a variety of grant opportunities with that very speed dating mindset. And certainly we're doing our level best to put this coalition of the willing from the industry side, matching them with the coalition of the willing, and you see the faces here, many of them, not all of them, actually. You see a sample of the faces from the state and local side. But yeah, we're not the only ones. I
Yeah.
point out that there are a cadre of us, including those on this call, who are working very hard behind the scenes and in front of the camera as well to make this happen.
Fantastic. Carlos, do you want to take us out?
Yeah, thank you. Thank you very much, Tim. And thank you. I know we went 5 minutes over, but certainly appreciate everyone's willingness to stay on. As I mentioned during the beginning of the webinar, we are capturing the questions that have come through, and we will follow up with our presenters to see if perhaps we can address some of those questions that came through during the live presentations. So again, just wanted to take the time to thank all of our participants and all of our speakers. We had a great panel today. Obviously, based on how much engagement and questions we received throughout the session, these really are some of the subject matter experts in this field. So we appreciate Alan, Tim, April, and Jim's time. And thank you all for participating. Again, we will be posting a copy of the recording on the ITS America website over the next couple of days. And Tim, I've had a couple of folks reach out just asking about whether the report that you referenced during the presentation, is that available? I'm
It
not
is.
sure it is. And
Carlos, what I'll do is I'll send you the full PDF so you can send it out to anybody who requests it. And by the way, if anyone would like a full report out, we are more than happy to do that for your organization of the consumer research.
Great, thank you. Thank you for offering that, Tim. So again, we appreciate everyone's time and attentiveness, and we hope to see you back here next week for the
Thank you,
second webinar in the
ITSA.
series.
Take care.
Thank you all.